All right, let's get started. We'll just jump right in. HC, would you mind standing and praying for Bible study tonight? Amen. I want to make sure I have a handout so I can follow along with it. Amen. So we're still in the life of Joseph. Last week we had covered how Pharaoh had his dreams and how Joseph had interpreted his dreams. We had looked at all the things that Joseph had gone through, all of the struggles and the fighting, and how truly this is how God wanted it to happen. The butler had forgotten about him for 2 years, but God intended it to happen this way. We looked at when he had spoken with Pharaoh after Joseph had interpreted the dreams, that it was not only the interpretation that Pharaoh wanted or that Pharaoh saw in him, but he also saw the policies and the statesman-like attitude that Joseph had towards what was coming, which was the famine and the plenty. We looked at these different things, how Joseph, he woke up a prisoner that day. He was in prison. And when he went to bed, he was the second most powerful man in the world. That only God can make such a difference in one day in someone's life. And so the timeline that we have been following, this is how we've been looking at it as we've gone through the study on Joseph's life, where he was born and how old he was when he traveled. Where we were at last week was that 30 years old, that he interpreted the dreams for Pharaoh and he became the second in command. So now we're going to look at the end of Genesis chapter 41, and we'll jump right into Genesis 42, and we'll actually do all of Genesis 42 today. We'll cover as Joseph is in charge now, and now Pharaoh's dreams are coming to pass. The reality of it is going to set in. So we'll go right in Genesis 41, and we'll start in verse 47. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. The plenty had come. The earth is going to bring forth this amazing harvest for 7 years, Joseph said, as Pharaoh had dreamed. So for 7 years, they're going to have this just abundance of what they could eat, this harvest that will be so much. So what do you do with it? Do you eat it all? Do you let some go bad? Thankfully, Joseph was in charge, and he had a logistic mind. He had a mind to prepare for the future. So verse 48, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. So he takes the food from everywhere, and he makes it equal across the board. He takes the food from the city and the food from the country, and he begins to collect it. That way, when the time comes, when the famine is there, they have provisions. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. He was unable to number it because there was so much. All of these seeds, all the food that in case of a famine they will be able to eat, that he's not even able to number it anymore. There's so much abundance. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. So now Joseph has 2 sons. Notice it's during the years of plenty. God is blessing the people, and God will also bless Joseph during this time. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my toil in all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. So during this time, Joseph saves so much food that it cannot be numbered, and he has 2 sons. But these sons, if you notice, maybe the names are familiar to you, Ephraim and Manasseh. But if they're Joseph's sons, and Jacob had 12 sons, how are they recognized as the tribes of Israel? So I put it on the handout, but without looking on the handout, how did Joseph's sons receive an inheritance of the land and be recognized as one of the 12 tribes? Do you know? Because there would obviously need to be 2 slots available. We don't hear about the tribe of Joseph. Joseph did not get a land inheritance. It would be passed down to his sons. But now there's 13. So does anyone know who did not get land as an inheritance out of the tribes of Israel? The Levites. The Levites did not receive a land inheritance. So his sons would take the place. Jacob would kind of adopt Joseph's sons into this inheritance. So how did Joseph's sons receive the inheritance and be recognized within the 12 tribes? Well, the tribe of Levi would not receive an inheritance as far as the land, as they would be dedicated wholly to the priesthood. They would not receive payment. They would not even receive certain food because everything they were given was what the people gave. They ate of the sacrifices. They would receive of the people. That was how they had their inheritance. That's how God set it up. The same is actually today, where Paul, when he's preaching, he writes in 1 Corinthians, why would you muzzle the ox? Meaning if you have an ox and he's treading corn, you would not put a muzzle on him, but you would let the ox eat of the corn while he's working. Paul would then write in that, did God write this because he just cared so much about the oxen? He would say, no, it's because that's how God's people are supposed to be. That Paul would tell them, as a minister, I should receive of you, and that's how I have my living. That's how I eat. That's how I get paid, so to speak. Paul would write to certain churches, and we read through our Bible study in Acts, where he said, I was a tent maker because the church was beginning. And he said, I don't want to receive anything from you. That way you can get everything and grow as a church. But he would tell them, I have the right to receive. He said, but I willingly won't at times. So here the priests, the Levites, as we'll see later on down the line, they would not receive a land because they would abide at the temple. They would stay in the tabernacle. And Joseph himself would not receive an inheritance. This leaves Manasseh and Ephraim to take those places and receive of the inheritance. So if you ever wonder, well, how are they, if they're Joseph's sons, how are they included in the 12? This is how. That's how they ended up in that lineage and received land. One of the cities would actually be where a lot of Samaria was at the time. But he receives of this. And Joseph names his sons based on his experience that he had already faced so far. Manasseh, his firstborn, meaning causing to forget. God caused Joseph to forget all of his troubles. That God would begin to bless him. God would take care of him. God would show him just how good things are, even in the midst of all the suffering that he had experienced. But he said, because God is so good to me, I have forgotten all the trouble that I've been through. This is someone who can speak from the heart that can forgive. Some people, they have a blessed life. And things are very good, but they'll live in this bitterness of the past because they either can't forgive someone or they feel like they have not been forgiven. And they just live in the past. Joseph said, God has caused me to forget. You would assume, wouldn't he still be angry at his brothers? They sold him into slavery. Maybe he was so angry at Potiphar's wife for lying about him. He said, I have forgotten all of that. I've forgiven it. It's done. I follow God. This is what brings peace. The second, his son Ephraim. He said, I shall be doubly fruitful. That's what it means. Almost a double ash heap. Just a double amount. That God blessed Joseph abundantly in the land where he was afflicted. God did not allow Joseph to suffer in Egypt and then pull him out of Egypt and bless him back in Canaan. But this is where he was a prisoner. Maybe when he was in power, he would ride the chariot by and look at the prison that he used to be in. He'd say, God has blessed me even in the land where I have been afflicted. I mean, what a testimony Joseph would have to those around him. That I used to be in that prison, and yet God blessed him here in this place. So those 7 plenteous years, they end. And what came after that? The famine, the dearth, as it would say, which is another word for that. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all the lands. But in all the land of Egypt, there was bread. There was bread in Egypt because of Joseph's provision, his statesman-like mind. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph. What he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all the lands. The famine was so bad, nobody had food. The people were coming from all over to Egypt to get food. And we're actually, towards the end of the Bible study, I'm going to go into, a parallel of Joseph and Jesus. But I also want to go into a parallel of, in the historical context, who Joseph was to the Egyptians. Because even today, they have found storehouses in the pyramids that have been built that are so deep that could hold this amount of food that is referenced here. These are real places that exist. And so later on, I'll probably find some pictures and we'll look at that, at what Joseph built and what he had built to store this. Because they had 7 years of plenty. But in verse 55, notice Pharaoh said, it says he said unto all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph and just do what he says to do. Pharaoh, once again, he would trust Joseph with the well-being of his entire nation. This is what number is this? 2 on the handout. Pharaoh would trust Joseph with the well-being of his entire nation. That takes a lot for a leader to do. To redirect, or the breakdown of leadership, to redistribute the authority. But for Pharaohs to say, the entire well-being of all of my people, I'll trust Joseph with every one of them. Just shows the trust that Pharaoh had in this ex-Hebrew slave. So now we get into Genesis 42, verse 1. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do you look one upon another? So you guys are just standing around looking at each other. There's no food. They're being lazy. He said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. He said, you guys, if you're not going to do something, at least go to Egypt and go get some food. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt. Notice only 10 of them went. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. Remember, Joseph and Benjamin were sons of Jacob's favorite wife. Joseph was the promised child, but Benjamin was now all he had left. And after what happened to Joseph, Benjamin is not leaving his side. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. The famine stretched all the way to Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Does this sound familiar? From where we first started in Genesis 37 is where this was from. But he had these dreams when he was 17 years old. Does anyone know how old he is now? He's in his 30s. 39. 39. So his dream came to pass. But it was not fulfilled until after 22 years. He had his dreams. He was sold into slavery. He was lied about and put in prison. He was in prison for years. The butler forgot about him 2 years more. And then finally, after the 7 years of plenty, if you look at the math, you can trace this down. It's been 22 years. And his dream is finally fulfilled. The dream that he had in Genesis 37, where he would tell his brothers, "For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obedience to my sheaf." His brothers said, "Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us?" And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. They hated him because of it. But Joseph's dreams were the reality. This is what was going to happen. And it may have taken 22 years. Maybe you feel God has put something on your heart. It took Joseph 22 years. Say, "I don't want to wait that long." I wouldn't want to either. But this is what was needed. This was all in God's timing. So don't rush God. But sometimes we have to be patient with the way He works. Because the Bible says His ways are above our ways. His thoughts are so far above our thoughts that we wait and we see what He is doing. So Genesis 42, the brethren came, they bowed before Joseph. And Joseph saw his brethren and he knew them. But he made himself strange unto them and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, "Whence come ye?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. Joseph recognized them, but last time they saw Joseph, he was 17. Now he's 39. He speaks a different language. He's been in Egypt. No doubt he's been accustomed to their culture. He's the governor, so he's definitely wearing the proper garments and attire. He definitely does not look like the teenage slave from years ago. And it says, Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them. And he said unto them, "You are spies to see the nakedness of the land ye are come." Joseph recognizes them, but now he's going to test them. Maybe he so badly wanted to just show himself right away who he was. But he remembered the dream he had, and he remembered what his brothers did to him. And it's not here that he's holding any anger or bitterness. He's not trying to get back at them just to be mean. But here we'll go through and we'll see why he's doing this to his brothers. Verse 10. And they said unto him, "Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies." And he said unto them, "Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land you are come." And they said, "Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not." They're already claiming, one of us is dead, referring to Joseph. They said, the youngest, he's with his father, but we're true men. We are not spies. And here's our story. They say the best way to claim innocence is just tell the truth. That's why there's a technique they use to see if people are lying, where someone will ask you a question. They say, "Where were you last night?" And you say, "Well, I was at work, and then I went home, and then I had dinner, and this and this." A technique they use is they say, "Tell me what you did, but say it in reverse." Because when people say lies, when they rehearse a lie, you don't rehearse it backwards. So the best way to tell the truth is you just tell the truth. There's no need to lie if you just say what happened. So here, the tried and true method, they just tell them, we're 12 brothers. One is dead, and to the best of their knowledge, he is dead. They sold him 22 years ago into Egypt. They're thinking, of course he's dead. Verse 14, and Joseph said unto them, that is that I spake unto you, saying, you are spies. Hereby you shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. He said, I want to see your youngest brother. Otherwise you guys aren't going anywhere. Send one of you and let him fetch your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are all spies. Remember how they treated Joseph? Joseph here is going to see, will they treat Benjamin the same way? Have they learned anything? Because obviously Joseph knows how special he was to his father. He also knows how special Benjamin was to his father. And now that Joseph is gone, you can only imagine how Jacob would be treating Benjamin. Of course, the brothers, they failed. They let Joseph get eaten by animals, Jacob believes. So they have failed, but he still has Benjamin. So he said, I'm going to see what they're really made of. How are they now? They've grown. It's been 22 years. Verse 17, and he put them all together into ward 3 days. He put them in prison for 3 days, gave them time to think. And Joseph said unto them the third day, this do and live, for I fear God. He said, I fear God. If you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. Joseph accuses them of being spies to try to get information out of them. He said, one of you will stay prisoner. He said, I'll let you take the food back to your family. But you have to bring your youngest brother if you want this brother we're going to keep prisoner here. Joseph is treating them this way to see if they will treat Benjamin differently than they treated him. You say, well, they haven't even brought up Benjamin yet. We'll see in these next few chapters the way that things begin to work out. But did they learn anything from their experience with Joseph? This verse is the first sign that they were repentant, that they felt bad for what happened with Joseph, is verse 21. And they said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. They said when Joseph, remember when he was in the pit? He was in the pit for a while. And remember when they threw him in, what did they do when Joseph was in the pit with no water? They just sat around and had lunch. You can imagine Joseph crying out to them, what are you guys doing? Don't kill me. And they're discussing how they're going to get rid of him. Notice it's flipped here. Joseph is on the outside and they're in the prison. They're thinking it's because we're guilty of what we did to Joseph. That's why we're suffering here. Verse 22, and Reuben answered them, saying, spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and you would not hear? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. Remember, Reuben was the one that when they all referred to Joseph as the dreamer, and just get rid of him, let's sell him into slavery, let's kill him. Reuben was the one that when he came back, he said, where is the child? The only one that spoke about Joseph as if he was a person. The others could not care at all. He was the one. But verse 23 first. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. So Joseph is speaking a different language and using an interpreter, but they don't know. Obviously, he speaks their language. So now he's hearing them, that they feel guilty about what they did to him. He finally feels that sense of, they don't completely hate me, that they feel bad for what they did. It says he hearing himself about them when he heard the way they were talking about him, and he turned away. He left, and he wept. And he returned to them again and communed with them and took from them Simeon and bound him before their eyes. So he takes Simeon, one of the brothers, and he's going to keep him. But Joseph was not done yet. And here, number 4 on the handout, he's going to test them to see if they've changed. He's going to see what they're really about and see if they in fact are just saying this because when you're in a stressful situation, you'll say anything to get out of it. Are they simply feeling guilty because we might die here? Well, maybe it was pretty bad what we did to Joseph. Or are they truly repentant for what they did? They're going to find out. Verse 25, then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way, and thus did he unto them. So they went there with money for the corn. And he gives them the corn, he gives them the food, but he also sneaks back in the money that they were supposed to give them. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money, for behold, it was in his sack's mouth. He finds the money that he was supposed to give, and he has the money with him. And he said unto his brethren, my money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, what is this that God hath done unto us? So now they're terrified, because now it's going to look like they've stolen. It's going to look like they've taken this money, and that they cheated the Pharaoh. It says, and they came unto Jacob their father, the land of Canaan, and told them all that befell unto them. So then he reiterates exactly what happened. Verse 35, or verse 30, says, the man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us and took us for the spies of the country. And we'll go down to verse 35. He reiterates everything that they said. And it came to pass as they emptied their sacks that behold, every man's bundle of money was there. And when they both had them and their father saw the bundle of money, they were afraid. So now they have not only a little bit, they have all of the money they were going to give to Pharaoh, and they still have it. And Jacob their father said unto them, me have you bereaved of my children. Joseph is dead. Now Simeon's not here. And you will take Benjamin away? All these things are against me. Remember, they went to him and they told him, if you want Simeon back, we need to bring Benjamin. Verse 37, and Reuben spake unto his father, saying, slay my 2 sons if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which ye go, then shall you bring you shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. He said, if I send Benjamin with you, and Benjamin is killed, he said, I'm going to be mourning till the day I die. But notice Reuben. Reuben is the one that cared for Joseph. That he may have not liked him for the dreams as well, but he did not want to kill him or sell him into slavery. And now here, knowing that maybe he could have prevented this from happening in the first place. The guilt he would carry, you're the example. Reuben's the oldest. Reuben is the one in charge. He said, I will go, and if I don't bring Benjamin and Simeon back, you can kill my sons. There's a lot of confidence to say, but it also shows how far Reuben is willing to go because of what happened to Joseph. This is someone from what happened who is repentant, who knows what happened is wrong, and he'll do almost anything to right his wrong because he knows what he did. The last one on the handout, it was Reuben. It was Reuben who wanted to spare Joseph from death, and now he is willing to offer his 2 sons for Benjamin. The confidence that he wants to go in, that, Dad, I know we failed with Joseph, but I will not fail this time. And so going in Genesis 43, next week we'll look at it. They go back in, and we'll look as they head back into Egypt. Joseph will test them again. But what are they going to do with this extra money they have? Will they take it? Say, man, God has blessed us. Look at that. But this is how you test if someone has real integrity. Because someone without integrity, they just made some money. And they'll show back up, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. No, they're going to prove we've changed. And we'll see what they do in Genesis 43. And then the continued back and forth with Joseph and his brothers. That'll be next week, Tuesday night. This Thursday, once again, there's no service. No service this Thursday because of our potluck that we have going on at 1 p.m. It'll be right upstairs. And we're continuing to fill out this menu. I'll get with my wife for any last minute things if anyone would like to bring anything. But we're filling this out ever so slightly. It's going to be a blessing. We're really excited. I'll send out a text tomorrow morning as well. But feel free to come. We'll be here. My wife and I will be here much earlier than 1 o'clock, setting up and preparing and being here. So let us know. We would love to see you there in fellowship. And then, of course, we have our men's Bibles and breakfast coming up. Not this Saturday. That'll be next Saturday. But no service because of our potluck this upcoming Thursday. Amen. Brother Butler, would you mind dismissing us in prayer for Bible study tonight?
Heavenly Father, we want to give you all praise, honor, and glory. Thank you for the life, passion, and word that you have given